Can't wait for the gag reel on this one. Welcome back to Ignite Agility. Once again, Angela Johnson and I are here to share with you some thoughts. But first, if you could do us a favor and like and subscribe to our channel, that would be great. It helps us out tremendously. Today, lead, follow, or get out of the way. Angela, welcome.
Hello, Christian. That's right. Lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way.
Hey, now, that wasn't in the title.
Well, you know, this is how we're feeling this week. We're kind of snarky over here this week. So, as always, try to do a little attribution.
Yes,
and all these people on the internet say Thomas Paine said that quote. But then you've got all these analyticals who actually read, and that quote is nowhere in anything Thomas Paine wrote. So, I don't know, believe the internet or not. So many people over the years have used it, from Patton to Lee Iacocca, and now us.
So, what brings us to that point?
How many times have you been working with one of our clients, or just, large potential client even, and we've heard a key leader, and I guess I'm going to put leader in scare quotes. Let's call them authoritarian. Because whether or not they're a leader, that's a whole different debate. But somebody at the top of the food chain, CEO, CIO, CTO, CEO, fill in the blank, right? How many times have we heard, well, this company has a lot of money to die a really slow death, and I'll be retired by then, so it won't be my problem.
My runway is clear. I know what I need to do to get out of here.
Mm-hmm. Any Agile approach, Scrum in particular, requires change. And I think these folks just get scared, right? Like, what? No, you see, I'm at the tail end of my career and I wasn't thinking about starting a whole new thing. If you think about where we're at with the law of diffusion of innovation, we are at beyond late adopters, in my opinion, and into the laggards, right? So these people, by definition, don't want to change.
Yep.
So now here we come along with all this, change. And they're like, yeah, how much time till my retirement?
Yes, I have seen this. I've, in fact, had someone say that. There's too much money here, and so why would we change?
Last week, there was a PSM workshop that I was leading, and one of our graduates who has come to a number of our workshops, he's like, I want to talk to you all about something. I can't believe. You're just really building it up, right, to be this thing none of us have heard before. And he says, the leader he was sitting down with flat out looked at him and said, it's not that long until I retire. This is way too much for me to think about or to take on. So save it for the next person. And he was flabbergasted. He was just like, he was literally shell-shocked that anybody would say this out loud. And looking around the virtual room, because we were on Zoom, people were laughing and people were nodding, and they opened their mic and they're like, this is the first time you've heard this? I've heard this for years out of our leaders. So
Welcome to the club.
Right? I don't think this is new.
Yeah, so it's not a confirmation bias on our part.
No.
We have people in classes saying this. We've had a client say this, and even close to home, just, what was it, within the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, one of our consultants called us up, and we were talking about making real change in this organization, and we were all kind of excited. There's a couple little glimmers of hope at the top, talking about doing large-scale Scrum, talking about making structural change. And he said, the CEO. So now we're talking the very top of a very large organization, over 20,000 employees worldwide.
So as much authority as you can have.
Right? Says, well, I'm in. We're going to do this. But not just yet. Because this key leader, and I'm going to keep putting scare quotes around that, who is organizationally responsible for this much hierarchy, they have another 18 months to go before they retire. So we'll look at this then. What? It's like, how can that be the only possible solution?
Yeah. If you look at, Q theory, it fails. That's one person for however many. System thinking, we have a choke point. Quantitative and qualitative reasoning. Think of the money that they might be missing out on just because of this one person that they know is not going to be able to get on board.
How about common sense?
Yes.
Take
the
all those
CS.
theories and throw them out the window. How about a little common sense?
Exactly.
Or even just the respect. So all that CEO would need to do is sit down with said person and let them know, hey, you and I, on the cusp of retiring, we've done some good work here, but there's this whole succession plan that is going to supersede us. There's this whole succession plan coming. Why should we hold them back? So what is it really that you're waiting for? Is it a date? Because you don't turn a certain age until a certain date to be able to tap into 401k or whatever big pot of money is waiting.
Dollar amount?
Yeah, if it's a dollar amount, this is a solvable problem. Or even just give that person the respect to directly confront this instead of everybody talking about them behind their back like they're doing. So it just boggles my mind a little bit. Why is just wait them out the only solution?
Yeah, it's single-threaded.
That just seems wrong to me on so many levels.
Plus, being proactive, having that conversation, they might even offer it too. We might be telling ourselves something like it's the only thing we can do. When if you just put it on the table and flip it, hey, we're trying to do this. We know you're not on board on this, or we know you're not really wanting to do this. What would you do if you were us?
Yeah. There might be any number of solutions that people come up with if we stop this backdoor, behind people's back discussion. So, okay, a talented Scrum Master could sit down, Scrum Value of Courage, and have some of these conversations. But what about the next generation?
Yes.
What about this next generation of leaders? So let's wave our magic wand here today, and some of these folks who need to retire or want to retire do. They get out of the way. Now, the new folks who are all fired up and inspired with their agility to make this change, do they actually do it?
Yeah.
Or does the system crush them too?
Yep. A colleague of ours has talked about this quite a bit. And, is it we're just marking time until these folks retire? And hopefully the people that we've seen come through our classes get to that point to where they're now the leaders, and then they can be the ones that lead this change. But then the other part of it is will it be, or is it going to be something that we're not able to see that happens when they get to that level? The system will still keep producing the same results. It's going to be an interesting dilemma.
Potentially job security for us. I don't know.
Possibly.
Well, and I say some of these things, and people will say, well, you're not demonstrating empathy for people in a certain stage of their career, or you're not demonstrating empathy for these people who want to retire. That is not true.
No, it's actually respectful to be able to have these conversations, to go, look, where are you with everything, and where do you want to be, and what is the things that we can do to help you get there? And it might be that we help you maybe move on quicker.
And when people challenge me on, my own career choices, I tell people all the time, at some point, you will see me at the drive-thru asking if you want to supersize that.
You said you're going to work at a drive-thru?
I would rather go work at a drive-thru than stay in a job where I'm miserable.
Yes, that is a choice.
Where people are talking about me behind my back because I'm somehow the bottleneck or somehow the impediment to them making change. I would rather get out of the way. So these, authoritarians, my hope is that they get inspired to lead. And it's not like they even need to do a lot of this work.
No.
A talented leader will say what the intent is, will shape the path, will give a little direction, and then trust the self-organizing teams of people who are inspired to make these things happen. Or if they want to step down, right, they want to follow somebody else that's named that organizational leader for this kind of change, or just get out of the way. And that can take many forms.
Do you think the reason some of these folks and the term leader, they freak out because they think they have to know all the answers, they think they have to have all the ideas?
I do. And the reality is they don't, right? Throw it to the team of people. There's another organization that hasn't said it out loud yet. I feel it every time I walk in the room. I feel the sense of, or I should say, the lack of motivation in a few C-level people. Even worse in that context, they just say yes to everything. They're just saying yes to literally everything.
Yes, please.
And it's
have another.
so much worse because now, they're saying yes to numerous conflicting, contradictory ways of doing work.
Yep.
Yes to every piece of work, right? So now we have all these conflicting, let's not even call them priorities because nothing's priority. So we have all of these things happening and it's like, how hard would it be to say, this kind of overwhelms me. I'm at a different stage in my career. You all are the next wave. You all are the organization's succession plan. That's been well stated. Why don't you grab the helm? Why don't you, lead? Because you seem to be very inspired. You seem to have some great ideas. Here, you're empowered to run the experiment. What are we afraid of? What's literally the worst that could happen? Especially if these organizations have enough money to die a really slow death, as many of them brag about.
Yes. What about the burning bridge scenario? I asked you that question. Have you ever seen agility take hold because of a burning bridge? And
Yes.
I think you had an example.
Yes, one of our clients, and I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to say their name,
So don't.
I'll just say that they were spun off by a very large, well-known Twin Cities organization that divested the product. So a little startup, 50 people, some seed money, right? Entrepreneur trying to get it off the ground. And they had a release of product that was so bad. They paid the customer not to take delivery on it. That's the situation they were in when their leader came to me and said, help, I want to try using Scrum. We are taking 18 months to deliver something, and it was horrible. So we put a little training together, booted a couple teams, did some coaching, boots on the ground coaching, got them sprinting and working together cross-functionally. They not only delivered the product in 9 sprints, so 18 weeks, not 18 months.
Yeah.
The client was overjoyed by the quality of the product, and they got a bunch of new orders from a trade show that they demonstrated the product at, just doing gangbusters. And they didn't stop. They didn't rest on their laurels and say, oh, we've arrived. No, today they're doing even more with very well-known companies in this nation that are contracting them for their services. So, and they were looking at going out of business. They were looking at not being able to make payroll after X number of months if they didn't do something different.
So there's some motivation there. I've also heard that sometimes the burning bridge can fizzle out, but I'm glad to hear that that is an experience that it kept going.
Yeah, and I think just by definition, the smaller organizations that are privately held, that they're naturally more entrepreneurial. I think they're naturally inclined to run more experiments and to take more risks. The premise of, this topic today, this lead, follow, or get out of the way, all the companies that you and I were talking about, and, names are withheld to protect the guilty, but that we had in our head, as we think about them, they're huge, right? Over 20,000 employees, over 10,000 employees, right? And lots of money and decades and decades of being entrenched in Tayloristic management and waterfall thinking and those kinds of things. So I do think that comes into play a little bit.
So what do you do? I was in a big organization and I struggled with that, had success in a small pocket, saw this could be successful for the rest of the organization, but they were sneezing money. Why would they do anything different? So what do you do if you're in that situation?
Well, one of the leaders that you and I have both worked with, I've heard her say on more than one occasion, I can wait them out. They only retire in 1.5 years, 2 years. I'm a patient person. I can wait them out. Okay, maybe not the greatest choice, but there is that.
Right. That was her choice.
That's her choice. Have the direct conversation. Sit down and say, here are the facts. There's no harm. There's no shame in being honest. Hey, I'm not motivated to do this, or I don't want to lead it, but will you impede an initiative if we give someone else, nobody's taking your pay away,
Nope.
nobody's taking your golden parachute away, but will you impede an initiative if that authority or that empowerment is given to someone else? I would just have the courageous conversation. And so Scrum Masters listening to this may have to start where they can. You know, if they don't have a direct audience with a CEO or with a C-level, who do they have in their circle of influence? Who can, they start having these conversations and socializing these ideas with.
And of course, the final option is you can change ships.
Change your company or change your company.
So it's key to point out, because I think it can get extremely frustrating for people who are learning that there's different ways to do work. There's more effective, proven ways to do work than what they're doing right now, and then wanting to try that and then meeting resistance. And that's the balance of knowing where you're at, where your patient level is. I was impatient, and so I left. But that's not necessarily everybody's choice. So,
no, but that's a good way to put a bow on this, is and tie this up, is lead, follow, or get out of the way, even if that means you getting out of the way, literally changing your organization.